Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another installment of Scott's Selections here with WinnersWiners.com here for Saturday, September 26th. Before getting to today's play today, quick recap of what happened yesterday. We ended up giving out some UFC plays for the upcoming UFC 253 card, which will be happening later tonight. Now, it's a little bit of a different format on that video. It was about 13 minutes, and instead of doing one play, I kind of went back to what I used to be doing with UFC in the joint shows, except by myself, where I broke down several fights and I listed several plays, and I did that instead. So if you prefer that format in the UFC coverage, let me know. So I'll do that in the future. And if you prefer the regular one pick, one fight situation, let me know as well. And I'll consider potentially keeping both in the future. But for today's play today, I know that there's an NBA game between the Lakers and the Nuggets, but I'm going to be skipping it because I don't really know how healthy Anthony Davis is. And that with all that uncertainty, that is just a huge question mark because Anthony Davis is one of the best players in the entire league. So for that reason, I'm going to be skipping the NBA, but we will be looking at an NFL matchup between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll be going with a player prop here. So far, it's been going pretty well with player props. We'll be looking for a winner here for tomorrow's game. Now, for the player prop, we're going to be looking at running back Miles Sanders, and we're going to be taking the over 80.5 rushing yards, which is available on Bet Online at -114 at time of recording of 2:55 a.m. Eastern Time. A couple reasons why I like Sanders 80.5 on the over. First of all, even though the Eagles were awful last week against the Rams and they only scored 19 points, they got killed, they lost by 18. The one bright spot was Miles Sanders, who made a season debut, and he ended up having 20 carries for 95 rushing yards and a touchdown, which is pretty impressive considering the fact that the game flow was absolutely atrocious for the majority of this game, as the Eagles ended up losing by double digits, and yet Sanders still had 95 rushing yards. Now he gets to face off against a Cincinnati Bengals team that is arguably the worst team in the league when it comes to rush defense. They're allowing 185 rushing yards per game. And if you also want to break down what they did on Thursday night against the Browns, it was even worse than that in terms of stopping the run because Cleveland absolutely ran the ball down their throats. Cleveland ran the ball 35 times for 215 rushing yards with 3 rushing touchdowns, which is the equivalent of 6.1 yards per carry. So Cincinnati cannot stop the run at all. Philadelphia's offensive line, which has had some issues earlier in the year, is a little bit better now that Lane Johnson is back, and it is still an above-average offensive line. So I simply think that Cincinnati is going to get manhandled up front once again, especially now that Geno Atkins, their defensive tackle, has already been announced to be out for this Week 3 matchup. And if you follow the NFL, you know how good Geno Atkins has been for his entire career. Plus, defensive tackle Mike Daniels is currently questionable, and he is kind of trending towards doubtful. So that should be a huge issue for the interior defensive linemen with Cincinnati because they're going to have to try to stop the run. And based on how Wentz has 4 interceptions, been sacked a bunch, I simply think that the Eagles should be running the ball a lot, especially as Vegas has the Eagles favored by roughly 5 points. That means that there should be a positive game flow as Philadelphia should be winning late, which should allow Sanders to get some carries late in games. But at the end of the day, if you have the worst rush defense in the league against a running back who is a very solid running back who had 90-something yards last week, and now he's facing an even worse rush defense, I simply think that Sanders should probably break 100. But for the sake of this prop, 80.5 is way too low, especially at -114. The only way I don't see this hitting is because of injuries if Sanders ends up getting banged up. But if you look at the Eagles depth chart, you have Miles Sanders, and you also have Boston Scott, and we all know that Boston Scott is more of a third down pass catching guy, but they don't have anybody to take the early down work for Miles Sanders on the depth chart. And for that reason, I think that if Sanders stays healthy, he should be able to get enough touches, probably around 25, give or take. And I think he should average at least 4 yards per carry. So I think he will go over this 80.5. So the play today, once again, here for Saturday, September 26th, is going to be on Miles Sanders over 80.5 rushing yards, which is available on Bet Online at -114. That's been the installment of Scott's Selections here with WinnersWiners.com. Good luck to all of you and your respective bets today. Bye, everyone.